morning.
Good morning.
And by the way, the friends that I had come, you're not the sick ones. You're the healthy ones. And I'm also, my husband said, are you going to the powwow today? Powerful women? I said that was cute. I would say that. So anyway, Prima Diva. I almost said Prima Diva. I'm wearing their wear today, so in case you want to purchase their clothes, they're out in the one of the exhibitors. So, conscious parenting. I think we can all agree that raising our kids with the intention of helping them reach their highest potential is what we would say is conscious parenting. And if I'm shaking, I am, and this microphone is not helping me. You know, I was a conscious conceiver. I was a conscious laborer, but I was not a conscious parent. I thought I was. I actually took a coaching class on what it was to do conscious parenting because we weren't quite ready, my husband and I, to have a baby. But I read books on what fertility and how to get a girl, and I did. And then I had my baby, and I had this baby, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know how to raise this child. Like, she came, and I had all these visions of this yummy, chubby baby and loving her up and kissing her up. I had no idea what I was going to do when she was here. And so I looked at my bookshelf, and I had all these great books on how to conceive her and how to birth her and what music to play while she was coming into the world, but not about how I was going to raise this child. And so in my desperation and in my sleep deprivation, I decided to pick up probably one of the last books I should have picked up, which is about how to make my child the most intelligent child on the whole block. And through a series of flashcards and numbers on each flashcard and words on each flashcard, or actually letters that eventually were going to be piled up together, and she was able to solve mathematical equations and speak like sentences at a ridiculously young age. And I thought, wow, this is what conscious parenting is. But really, that wasn't it at all, because I was absolutely exhausted. And my husband and I thought, you know what? Let's just love her. Let's just love her up. That's what we know how to do. We know how to intuitively love her. And somehow that love is going to make her smart, and she's going to be strong. And we don't have to read all these books and feel bad about ourselves because we can't do flashcards. And so we put those things away and really started to intentionally love her regardless. So one of the things through my research that I absolutely know to be true is that we are all here to love and be loved. I'm going to start crying. That is our highest purpose. And when we're loving and we're intentionally loving, we are tapping into our most innate divine potential, our wisdom that we were given and born with that exceeds everything we could possibly imagine ourselves. We enter into a realm of possibility that only that intuition can guide us to. And so when we are in this loving intention, when we're in this loving intention, physiologically, I know this is true that it's my highest intention, because physiologically we produce the mother lode of all chemical that comes through and covers our body, goes inside our body, and goes into the parts of our brain that allows me to be the most conscious, intentional, loving, kind, faithful, patient, peaceful, purposeful, intentional person. And science tells me that this particular response is called the rest and digest state. This is where oxytocin comes through, floods my body, and picks up her sister called serotonin. They're girls, by the way, these hormones. And they come over and they overwhelm my body with this amazing capacity to stay in this state of purposefulness and intention. And when I was thinking about this, I thought, wow, this is amazing that my highest intention is to love and be loved. And the biggest hormone, the mother lode of all hormone, the hormone that is the biggest growth and health promoter in my body, gets excreted and puts me in a state of health. And as long as I stay in this loving space, I continue to excrete these hormones that are so powerful. This is what allows me to thrive. And then I got this vision that when I am living out this intention of love, I become the receptor. And I am docking in to the love creator that created all of us, that created the things for us to live out the highest intention and purpose we could possibly do. This love connection, I can do all things through this connection. I can do anything because this is the realm of possibility and opportunity that unlocks inside of me that I don't consciously understand. This is the intention when Leslie said, when you sit there and you say yes, you keep walking into these opportunities that there's no way you could have created. There's no way you could have made those connections when you're walking down the street, Nancy, and you see a friend that you didn't intentionally think you were going to meet them, but you run into them and they open up a story, a realm of opportunity. That one thing begets another when you are locked in to the love creator, and I call it the love loop. This love loop continues to allow me to grow and thrive. And the other side of this love loop is the other thing that keeps and protects us, and it's a state of survivability, and it's called the fight or flight mechanism. And I call it the fight or fright mechanism because it is a fear-based mechanism. And it's good for a purpose of keeping me alive when I'm running after kicking in when I'm running after my child when she's about to run into the street, or I'm running away from the boogeyman or the lion that's about to eat me. But really, I wasn't meant to stay there. We were never meant to stay there. We were there just for protection. And that's exactly what it is. When we are not in our loving state, we are in our fearful state because we're either in one or the other. We're not in both. And I think society has kept us in the state of overachieving, overdoing, overstimulation, chaos, and we're docked into that unconsciously. We don't realize our highest intention and purpose is to stay in the loving state, which is rest and digest. And so we as mothers, when we conceive our babies, whatever experience we're going through, however we're responding to it, our babies inside our bellies are responding to it exactly the way we are responding to that. Every chemical that's going through my body is going through that child's body. Good or bad, that's what they do. That's what they're learning. You see, nature's preparing them to step into the environment in which they're about to be pushed out into. That's the beauty of our innate intelligence. They're creating these children to know what their environment is. And when these children come out, they are looking at us as their parents at every single moment. They're looking at us 100% of the time. Every single behavior, pattern, expression, word, everything I say to that child downloads into their unconscious. They're picking up every little thing that I'm saying to them. Every behavior I'm propagating to them. And that could be behaviors from my mom, from her mom, from that mom. That's how we propagate our behaviors. That's when we say, oh, you're doing something like my mom does. Well, that's you. They're a reflection of us, good or bad. And so these kids are picking up everything, and there's a time in which their brains download all this information, and it seals shut. And everything that they have now is hardwired in that brain. And those little brains, everything is hardwired, and it is fact for them. So they grow up having this fact of either being docked into love or docked into fear. And so as they grow up, there are situations where you'll see kids, they just stay on top of the heap, regardless of what life has brought to them, regardless if they didn't get chosen for the football team, or they weren't picked for the prom, or they're dumped by their boyfriend or girlfriend, or their spouse left them, or someone died in their family. These are the kids, when they are docked in love and they know their highest potential is to love and be loved, they move through those circumstances. You see, we're not to stay in the valley of the shadow of death. We're supposed to walk through that. This capacity to love and understand where we are at our highest purpose allows us to go through this and not be attached to it, because that's not our highest purpose. Things happen, but it's not because I created them. It's because that's what happens. My purpose is to do with loving intention, is go through that with the most compassion, with the highest intention I can possibly do, so I can live out my highest purpose and continue to do that. If we're exhibiting behaviors that we're struggling with consciously, and we start to say, wow, I don't like that, or that behavior is not in line with my consciousness of what I want in my life, good news is you can go in and reprogram the unconscious that's talking to us. That unconscious voice can be shut down and reprogrammed so it can match what we want consciously, but it does take work. And fortunately, there's so many different wonderful therapies that allow us to do that. But if we are on this earth trying to raise our kids with the highest intention, it's important that we are also living the life of our highest intention and not allowing societal pressures that's also docked in fear to drive my behavior. It's important for me as a conscious parent to provide an environment for my child and all of our children to thrive and grow and be insistent and consistent on the boundaries and the things that I know that's going to allow my child to thrive. And most of that is in the home. Our children connect with us through being in a pattern and rhythm of our home. And they need to know and depend that they can come into and rely on the parents, who whatever that parent figure situation is, as long as there's consistency and boundaries there, that's all they need. But you see, society, again, with our lack, causes us to overschedule, be overstimulated, to be chaotic. And when our children are in that environment, guess what happens to them? They produce the same cortisone, adrenaline, adrenal run, fear-based. They are the ones, they can't comprehend, their brains are not able to assimilate all that cortisone. And guess what happens to them? They become hypersensitive, hyperactive, they lose lots of focus. And what do? We stick them on Ritalin. Americans consume 80% of all the Ritalin that's produced in the world. And I would dare say most of those are our children. Our society doesn't want our kids to be hyperactive and overstimulated. And yet we're the ones, society is the one that's creating these environments that our kids, that's robbing our kids of their childhood because they weren't designed to be in our world. They're designed to play and have space and be creative. They weren't designed to go and be scheduled and overachievers, and that's not what our love creator wanted for them. So science has shown that when kids were taken off of Ritalin and their environment changed, within 6 months their cognitive skills and their academic scores increased by at least 40%, just by environmental change. You see, when we're in a state of fight or fright, we produce that adrenaline that causes us to be in a chronic disease state as well, because that's not where health is promoted, actually. This is where most diseases are inspired, is in this state. When we're anxious, overscheduled, overburdened, the word over kept coming up in my research, and I think, why is over? Over-consumers, over-consumption, we're undernourished. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? All those behaviors are docked in somehow in this fear model. And so I think about what sort of environments that a child thrives in, and realizing that what we do together as a family is really what they need. And looking at different patterns and rhythms that children are the most healthy. They produce the best behaviors in our children. And one of those is really about mealtime. Mealtimes, they show that when kids come together every single night in a pattern of consistency with their parents, this is a time where you get to sit down at the table, share the day with one another, deconstruct the day, air out your frustrations and share it in each other's victories, and you connect. And studies also show that kids that have this one routine, they have higher vocabulary skills. They're less depressed. They have less eating disorders. They're less likely to drink, do drugs, and smoke. This is where their highest interpersonal skills are developed. Reverence is paid around the table, and children need it, and we need it. We all need these things. The other thing is politeness. Children learn politeness and what is that loving kindness that we tap into through the words that we speak together in the home. in our rude, crude world, there's a lot of boundaries that are being blurred about what is polite. And they start to think that some things are acceptable. When they come inside the home, this is where we deconstruct that and let them know it's not acceptable. This is what being in your loving intention looks like. Bedtime ritual for both of us, for us and our children, is where we get to open up and expand into the realm of fairyland. Because the touching, nurturing, oxytocin-filled yum fest that happens in that bed. Einstein said, if you want to create an intelligent child, read them fairy tales. If you want a more intelligent child, read them more fairy tales. What about boredom? Boredom is what unlocks that creative purpose in a child. That is where magic happens in boredom. And then I said, what about being bored in nature? Nature, this is our love creator. The same divine innate intelligence in us is in nature. Why is it that we go out in nature and we feel so rooted and grounded in nature? When we touch and feel and smell and observe nature and participate, the world of opportunity opens up to us again. When we're feeling sad and down and in our overstressed, undernourished selves, step out in nature and take a deep breath. This is how nature loves us. Filtering out adult conversation, television, radio, technology. Our kids' brains were not developed to have all this barrage of information to them. When we filter out and put boundaries around what they watch, what conversations, we keep them in their childhood. Why is it that we love to be around a child who's giggly and playful and laughing? They show us a bit about ourselves that I think some of us miss. And filtering is part of that. And let's talk about technology. Technology was not about forging relationships or firing people over technology. People are emailing their firing. They're emailing their breakups. They're making love over the internet. What a sad thing. We were never meant to do that. And one of the saddest things is when I go into a restaurant and I see a child sitting there with a technology device while their parents and their friends are having a conversation, one of the most reverent places to connect and interconnect. They're not trusting their child to realize that this is one of the most powerful times that they get to witness behaviors that will help them grow and inspire other relationships. And I had to actually tell a family the other day, is that really necessary that I hear the chipmunks while I'm eating my dinner? We need to create an environment that's simplified, that's not chaotic, declutter, get rid of all the visual noise in your home and even in their bedrooms. Get rid of too many toys, too much. The too much is docked into our fear base. A conscious parenting is it's not about the fanciest school, the highest paying job, or even the best toys. It's about intentionally, at all costs, loving your child and sharing with them that lovingness that they need to be nurtured in. Marianne Williams said this: if we just surrender to love, we enter and melt into a realm that's beyond us, that's already within us. The world changes when we change, and the world softens when we soften, and the world loves us when we choose to love the world. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful day.